I felt that to start off these modern horror movie reviews, there was no better movie to review than a film from this year that is critically acclaimed and absolutely destined to become a modern day classic. That film is It Follows. Before this film came out, I heard nothing about it, and all of a sudden everyone was talking about it and saying it's the best horror movie in years. So going into the film, there was a lot of hype that it had to live up to. And my god, did it live up to the hype. The film is about a girl called Jay. The film starts with her going out on a date with her boyfriend Hugh, who throughout the whole day acts very weird. After the date, they have sex. After they finish, Hugh knocks her out and ties her to a chair. Hugh explains that he has a curse where he is constantly followed by something. This something can take on the appearance of any person it wants to. If this being catches Hugh, it will kill him. The only way he can stop it from following him is to transfer the curse onto someone else by having sex with them, which is what he does with Jay. But if Jay gets killed, then the being will go back down the line to follow Hugh. To everyone who doesn't have this curse, the being is invisible, so no one really believes Jay. But because she is so terrified, her friends decide to help her stay alive and try to stop the being that's following her. The thing that makes this being creepy, of course not only being the fact it can take on any form, is the fact it doesn't run. It just slowly walks. It slowly follows you, so you can easily run away, but it never stops walking. It keeps following you, so you basically can't stop, otherwise it will catch you. This idea is so unique and interesting. I mean, it's incredibly rare for a horror movie from the last few years to have a really interesting and new idea. The film is heavily inspired by John Carpenter's movies, mainly Halloween. There are many visual references to that film in there that I really liked. The cinematography in the film is incredibly well done. It took me a while to get into it because it's really unlike anything I've ever seen before. But that's what is good about it. It has its own interesting look that has never really been done before. There is a fantastic scene where the being is following Jay. The being is outside and she is inside. The camera spins around to see her talking to someone and then out the window to see the being. It does this complete 360 spin that, although at first was a little bit disorienting, was so well done. The film has its own style, something that I absolutely admire. The film is incredibly scary, and by scary, I mean it scares her all down to the tension and atmosphere of the film. This is pretty much a completely jump scare free movie. It goes back to the horror movies of the 70s and 80s and uses the sort of things that made some of those movies scary. You never find out what the being is, so that sense of uncertainty is really what makes it scary. The fact that throughout the whole film you know that the being never stops following means that you're constantly on edge expecting it to come in. Many people have interpreted the symbolism in the film and how it's a parable on STDs, and yes, I can definitely see that being possible. It really does make sense. The film is in a very basic sense a film about survival and the things that people will do to postpone their inevitable deaths. This is basically the story of 95% of horror movies, but this movie actually does something incredibly original with it. The thing following them isn't a serial killer as it would be in a lot of other movies. The premise is fantastic, but not just the premise is original, the whole movie is original. It's completely unpredictable, and there are times where my heart was beating incredibly fast because the scene was so terrifying and tense. Very few horror movies in the last few years have terrified me quite like this movie did. When I first watched it, I really didn't like the first 15 minutes or so. I felt that the writing wasn't very good and the acting wasn't as good either. But the more I thought about it, many of my favourite horror movies are like this too, and I can definitely see this film going up there with some of my favourite horror movies ever made, because this film is that good, incredibly original, terrifying, and has great, incredibly realistic characters. There's a lot more I can say about how much I love this film, but maybe I'll save that for another future video. I give It Follows a 10 out of 10.